Welcome, welcome. Anyone who's here, or if you're even watching this at a later time, I welcome you into this space. It's been a minute. We didn't do it on the first Friday of the month because that was the 4th of July. And so here we are doing it now. And there's been so much that's been moving through me. And I'm really excited to share some simple truths with you all. Um, these simple truths have literally changed the way I show up for myself, which has created a ripple effect for all of my life. Because when we finally are able to give and receive from ourselves what we were previously withholding from giving and receiving from ourselves, everything in life starts to change because our relationship with ourself changes. And when there's no more inner war, when there's more peace here, our reality starts to shift and change in the most beautiful of ways. There's so much freedom in showing up for ourselves in a new way. So let's talk about I normally will ask you to check in with yourself, and maybe I'm going to do that really quick here. I say this every time that as I used to work in a practice, a therapeutic practice in an office instead of a virtual practice that I maintain now privately, um, there were a lot of people that would come in that would sit in front of me, and they believed that they were depressed and anxious, and they had this sort of disorder or addiction, and they were coming in order to receive guidance around what they believed to be true about themselves and about the world and their reality, because they believed that they literally were a person that was depressed instead of being a soul that was living in a body that was experiencing depression or anxiety. But the diagnosis being given by a system, that's a whole thing. So I'm not going to get into that right now. But as I sat in that practice, I realized pretty quickly that that's not where I wanted to be. That was not the space that I wanted to be in and live in, and helping people stay in the identification of feeling like they are the ones that are depressed, or that they are the ones that are anxious, instead of giving some space to that and saying, I am a soul that is here to experience this, what I'm not, so I can understand what I really am. So that is why I do this. I do this for free. I show up here because I'm very passionate about these things, and I see and have experienced how much they've changed my own life and how they've changed my clients' lives. When we can give a little bit of space to our suffering and our belief that we are a certain way. Okay. First of all, I'm going to pull my 80s hair back because it's kind of bothering me a little bit. I don't know. Let's see how this goes. Okay. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what are you noticing that's moving through you right now? Is there anxiety? Is there depression? Is there anger? Is there joy? Is there freedom? Is there excitement? All of these are just, it's all energy in motion. Emotion comes and it wants to move through us. And yet we don't want to feel it. We only want to feel the things that make us feel like high vibrating, because they come through and they make us feel a certain way. But we are here as humans to experience all of it and not judge it as good, bad, right, or wrong. When we can stop resisting what's coming in, trying to communicate with us, we literally have peace when we are able to surrender to our emotions and let them come so they can continue to move through us. Trauma is really just feelings unfelt. They didn't have the opportunity to completely move through us when we're younger, and even as adults, at any point when we're resisting what's wanting to move through us so we can experience what it feels like to be depressed instead of identifying that, oh, I'm depressed because I'm feeling this. So we're going to change the paradigm, change the way we have previously been thinking about our thoughts. Everything begins with our thoughts. Okay, so I don't want to get ahead of myself in my notes here. So just notice, and if you want to put in the chat, you're welcome to, or if you're listening to this at a later time, I invite you to be curious. What is moving through me right now? So if I were to answer that question, I'd say there is, do you notice how there is gives a little space? It's not I am, it's there is. Right now, there is, there's so many things. How can I think of the one thing? There's excitement. There is some trepidation too. I'm creating a lot of new offerings in my practice, and I'm building a new website, and I have all these, like a course that I'm building too, and I'm really excited about it, but there's a little bit of trepidation, if I'm really honest, because some of my old patterning was self-doubt. Like, can I do this? Will anyone come? Will anyone be wanting to shift and change their life into more peace and more freedom? And so that's real. That's kind of moving through me right now. But it shifts and moves all the time, and I allow it to, and that's given me so much peace. So if I am not in peace, I don't feel peace here, it means I'm not surrendered. I'm resisting what is. So resistance shows up in our bodies as I've sat with people, most people, it can be different for you, but most people will describe it as a tightness in the chest, almost like a lump. It's like this thing that's sitting there, almost like it has a heft or a weight to it. Um, and sorry, my notes disappear as I keep letting people in. So if there's some stopping here, it's because I'm coming back to my notes. So resistance shows up in our bodies, this one instrument we've been given to try to teach and inform us about remembering who we be. We came here to forget. We came here to forget our wholeness, because how could we understand our wholeness if we've never experienced not wholeness? So this forgetting and living in our mind and suffering is really important part of our forgetting. And so that resistance to what is shows up in our bodies as tightness in our chest, but in our thoughts, it manifests as these mental loops of complaining, judging, wanting things to be different than they actually are. It looks like, I don't want this, I want that. I don't want this much money, I want that much money. I don't want this house, I want that house. I don't want to be this way. We're looking sideways, and we're comparing and thinking in mental loops that things should be different than they actually are. And this creates a lot of suffering. So I invite you to, just wherever you're sitting right now, to look around you, literally. I invite you to look left, wherever you're sitting, wherever you are, and just observe what's around you. And then I'm going to invite you to look right and just look and observe what's to your right. And then just take everything in, all that's around you in your now moment. And just observe it. What is the energy toward your right now, your present moment? Is it loving? Is it rejecting? Is it compassionate? Is it critical? Is it wishing that all of this were something else, something different? So I invite you to do this simple practice, because what it does is it gives you, we cannot change what we're not aware of. So if we're living all of our present moments unaware that we are living in a state of suffering by complaining or rejecting or dismissing or staying busy, staying distracted, we aren't really living, are we? We're suffering. So I invite you to become more curious right now in all of your now moments and recognize, oh, I'm resisting in this moment. And I can choose to align with what is without collapsing, without resignation, but just to ask, how could I possibly surrender to this, to all of what's happening in my life right now? And answer really honestly, because really it's persistent and persuasive, our reality. If we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough food, or we're in a relationship that makes us feel unseen, that's real, and it's very real, but it can only ever shift and change when we bring awareness to what is really going on here. Am I willing to continue to suffer? So this is the question. How could I possibly surrender to what is right now and answer honestly? Because I'm tired of suffering. I really, really would love to have more peace. Peace more than I want control. I want peace more than I want control. That's the beginning of transformation. And when we can be really honest with ourselves about this question, things start to shift and change. There's a softness that comes. Literally, think of what's happening inside our body when we are, like I always teach, I learned this from one of my teachers, and it just resonated so beautifully with me when I heard it. It's the difference between submission and surrender. And submission is kind of like resistance, even though it doesn't seem like it, because submission is like, if things feel out of control in my life and I'm going to submit, it looks like this. It's like, well, I'm going to allow this to happen. I'm not going to resist it, but I'm going to do this. And it's like standing in front of the ocean and have waves come hit and hit and hit, and it's rigid and it's contracted, and it's going to break over time. It's not sustainable. Because true surrender looks like opening up to what is, accepting it and embracing it, thinking, I can't control this, but when I do this, somehow the frequency of this rather than this keeps me in the flow of life. Now life is working with me, and I'm accepting life as it is in the frequency of acceptance rather than resistance. Surrender rather than submission. Does that make sense? Can you feel the difference in your body? Some people, when I work with clients, when I do this, they're like, oh, I can't do that. That's too scary. And I get it. I get it, because that used to be me. The idea of living open like this, no way, because my heart is exposed when I'm doing this, right? I've lived for years with a big do not disturb sign around my heart. And I thought that was protecting me, but that was my ego. Our ego always wants to protect and preserve our what? Our identity, our personality. It's trying to protect a version of us that is here, and it's important that it's here, our personality and how we show up here, but our soul is not our personality. Our soul is so much more than our ego. So our ego comes in, and in our thoughts, it says, you need to fight this. You need to control this. All of this that's happening out here is creating a lot of suffering in here. So therefore, you need to control these things in order to feel better. When in actuality, just the opposite of that is actually true. So I'm going to explain that to you. Welcome if you're just joining in. But our ego thinks that fighting life will make things better, but it only creates the frequency of resistance of what is. And within that frequency, it creates internal and external, how do I explain this? Like a dense energy, kind of like what you feel when you feel the lower vibrating emotions, which are energy in motion. They come through. Shame is just above death in its frequency. Death is 0 hertz. Shame is 20 hertz. It's just above death. Think about that. When we're feeling shame and guilt, they're so heavy. No wonder we keep running from it. When we can finally say, wait a minute, I am a soul that is experiencing shame. Is that how I want to feel? Do I want to keep feeling that way? When we surrender to what is, and we're not resisting or fighting or trying to control anymore, we literally change the vibration of ourselves. And when we're living in the vibration of acceptance, guess what starts to settle? It starts to, everything's energy. The dust settles because we're more still and we're not frantic trying to control things. Can you feel the difference in your body between trying to control, being out here? It's a very wounded masculine energy, penetrating out, trying to control. It's a very yin feminine energy to I call it the sacred pause. It's slowing down enough to put some space between what we're experiencing and our response or our reaction to it. If we're only ever living in reactionary state, we're not really living. We're just pushing and pulling away comfortable things or discomfort. So think about this. When you can be in a surrendered state with what is, it creates a frequency that isn't so dense. It's more light. Actually, I like to think of it like, instead of chipping away at concrete, like what we're trying to do when we're trying to control, we're literally like, no, this can't be like this. I need this to change. That is dense energy. When we're like, okay, this is what is. Can I soften my heart around what is right now? Because when I soften my heart, I take off the do not disturb sign. I literally am opening my mind. And guess what arrives? More energy to create new solutions, new ideas. Creativity comes in because we're softening and we're allowing new things to come in. We take the do not disturb sign and we set it over here, and we become a being that actually is willing to live, to be human, to experience what it feels like to be human without clinging. I'm sure you've heard the saying by Descartes. He was a famous philosopher back in the day. And the saying is, I think, therefore I am. And that's an old way to believe, because that statement has led humanity into deep, deep suffering. The truth is, I am this being, therefore I'm going to think, but I'm going to be brave enough, radical enough to question my thoughts. Is it true? Is it true that I am what I came to believe before I knew better when I was younger? Because my parents were not perfect, they're human, and they didn't show up for me every time perfectly. Of course, they couldn't. And it's part of our process to come here to forget our wholeness. And that is part of the process, to have human parents who have their own trauma and they're on their own path. So what we came to believe about ourselves before we knew better, is it really true that we don't matter, or that we're not lovable, or that we're not enough, or that we have to be or act in a certain way to have value or worth in this life, or in this family, in this culture, whatever that is, whatever that looks like for you? We all have our own version of that. And it's part of the reason we came here, to forget who we are, which is whole, which is love, which is abundance, which is not separate from source. But the forgetting is an important process of our coming back home to the remembrance, the truth of who we be. So we are the one who observes our thoughts. We are not our thoughts themselves. Our soul doesn't think, it knows. So when we are identifying with a thought, we are literally staying in the frequency of forgetting our true nature. And we're living from fear, control, and the idea, the illusion that we are separate from source. And it all begins with our thoughts. Our thoughts that we have come to believe that are creating this reality. I know some of you have been here and you've heard some of this. So you're like, oh yeah, Noelle has said this before. If you're new here and this is new information, I invite you to just see how this resonates in you. See how it resonates in your soul, these ideas, these concepts, because when we start to slow down and not be so busy, that's when the beauty begins. That's when the good stuff can arrive, because we're giving space to stop believing that we are our thoughts. We start noticing, wait a minute, if I'm observing that I'm angry or that I'm sad or I'm lonely, that means that I am not that thing. I'm observing myself experiencing these emotions, these experiences. If the world is neutral, which it is, what does that mean? If it's a mirror, what does that mean? It can literally mean that if there is peace in here, if we're no longer resisting what is, guess what? Our reality is going to mirror back to us. Peace, abundance, love, no judgment, just acceptance and embracing things as they are, ourselves as we are first, and then from there out. That's what will mirror out and reflect and echo back to us, whatever is going on in here. So think about that. If there's a war going on in here, how could our reality, which is a mirror, it's a benevolent mirror, always inviting us to look back in? If we're judging someone out here, what does that really mean? It means that we've judged, we are aligning with the energy of judgment of whatever we're judging because it exists here, or it wouldn't be triggering us. We wouldn't be judging it if it didn't make us feel something. So when I started to learn these things and started to change the way I was thinking, when I started to get really curious, like if that is actually happening in my reality, what must I have come to believe about myself that I am creating this situation to show me through my thoughts, this reality is happening. Why did I create this? What is it trying to teach me? That's a very different way to live, because it means radical self-acceptance. It means that we are willing to be very transparent with ourselves and get more clear on there is nothing to blame outside of us. If we are a victim, if we believe with our thoughts that we are a victim to life, we are living in the identity. Do you see this? The identity of victimhood, which is lack. It's that I need this to be a certain way for me to feel safe or comfortable, instead of saying, oh, I can see how I have come to believe that, I'll name any of it, that I don't matter. And so I am looking at all of life through a lens of I don't matter. And so everything is going to show up in my life to show me that I am living in an identity and thinking and believing that I don't matter. Because they said that this is happening. I can't make money in my business, all the things. And when we start to turn in and say, oh, wait, whoa, time out. I can only ever be experiencing what I am thinking and believing to be true. It's very crazy because everyone's walking around with their own perception. Think of it. Every person that knows us Each one of us has a different perception of us through their own lens of what they believe to be true. If they're judging you, it has nothing to do with you. Something that you have done has triggered in them and shown, if they're willing to look, it shows them where they're still not free. So our thoughts create suffering when we mistake them for truth. So many of us, I can only speak from my lived experience. I have lived decades of my life in a constant state of egoic thought loops, judging myself, judging others, and judging what is. And this chronic mental resistance created so much anxiety and discord, cognitive dissonance in me, but I didn't know what it was. I never, because it always existed. It's like telling a fish, oh, you're swimming in water. And they're like, what water? I don't get it. It's because it's just all we've ever known. That's all I had ever known, is that very subtle. I was like a high functioning, I guess, anxious person because I was believing the lie that I came to believe before I knew better than to question it. So the healing, so can you see how these chronic mental thoughts that we believe are start to manifest as dis-ease over the years in our bodies, literally disease, dis-ease from our thoughts, believing a lie, an error in thinking, and that creates disease in our bodies as we go. And that is a radical thought. Some people have a lot of resistance to that, and that is okay. But the experiment begins and healing begins when you stop believing every thought and you come back to the present moment. So I said this before, when you stop resisting, your vibration changes and life starts to respond differently. It doesn't happen all at once, because think about this. Every now moment, what we're living now, our reality now, get curious, our now moment can only ever be a representation or manifestation of what we believed about ourselves sometime in the now moment before. Time is relative, so everything's just happening in a different dimension of time. We're literally living in a bubble of now. Everything's just happening now. So what would it be like if we could change our thoughts now? Like, be aware, bring the awareness that, wait, whoa, I can feel in my body there's suffering. How do I want to feel? Do I want to continue suffering? It's so brave. It's such a brave thing to do, to be aware of what's really going on in here, because in every now moment lies your power to choose not suffering, to choose peace. And it starts with your thoughts about yourself. So you get curious. So new ideas, ease, inspired action becomes available because now you've softened your heart and you open your mind. And now literally the energy isn't dense. It's free, it's expansive, it's open, and new creativity comes in, new solutions, new possibilities of a way to be. And you stop where our attention goes, our energy flows. So if we're constantly being pulled back to the past of what happened and it was painful and it hurt me, we allow those thoughts to create a fearful future. And now we're not really living because we're stuck in the illusions of past and future. So when we get really present, give some space to what we're thinking, the sacred pause, and come home and say, oh, I don't like how this feels. How I want to feel is peace. Okay. I think it was Wayne Dyer, yes, who said, change your thoughts, change your life. If you change the way you think about things, the things you think about change. Did I say that right? Something, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say there. So the inner shift always precedes the outer shift. It can be no other way. If we have been consistently trying to control our outer reality, whether it's children or partners or work stuff, whatever it is, it's backwards. We can only ever change what's going on in here, start feeding love and compassion into us, then everything out there starts to shift. And it's so beautiful. There's so much freedom in that. So we've already talked about this. I kind of got ahead of myself. Time is not a line. It's not linear, but we are living in the three-dimensional world. So it really feels like it's this linear thing that's happening here and here, but we give focus to here, and that keeps us in the frequency of forgetting our wholeness, which is right here in every now moment. So resistance to what is now, like we talked about this. I don't want this body. I don't want this job. I don't want this moment. I want that thing. I want something else. I want it to be something else. And it is literally the energy of opposition, the opposite of creation. And this keeps us just enough disconnected from source, from God, from ourselves, from spirit, from the universe, what words you use for deity. And that creates suffering because we're believing a lie that we are separate from all of that. Okay. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, please. I'd love to answer anything. I'm here. I'm going to wrap this up soon because I always want to end right at an hour, so we're not going over. But if you would like any support on this or anything else, if you feel like there's any challenges, any roadblocks in your life right now, some pattern in your life that keeps arriving that you're curious about and would love to have maybe a second eyes on it, I'm here. That's what I'm offering here. One other thing a couple things that I want to say. I don't know if you've ever heard this analogy, but we believe that we're separate from source or God, right? Sometimes I don't know what religious inclination you have, but we can, if we feel separate from or disconnected, that it's this thing outside of us that we feel disconnected from. This analogy was really helpful. Think of like there's a board and there's a light shining on it. And in that board, there's a bunch of holes, like just millions of holes without number. And the light shines through the holes. And on the side of the holes, looking from the other side, it looks like there's just these single light streams of light. And that would be all of us. So when we're on the other side looking back, we're like, oh, look at all these separate things. These are separate paths and separate ways to be. But really, if we look on the other side of that board, that big plane, there's only one source of that light. And it shines through one love, one light, one consciousness. And Jesus spoke to this. He said, ye are the light of the world. And he meant that for each one of us. We really can be that light because we are not separate from it. When I started to surrender more because it got so uncomfortable in my life trying to control things and wishing that they were different, I stopped resisting the heaviness of the practice that I was in. I was like, it's too heavy to sit with people all day long when they're depressed and anxious. And I believed that that was too hard. When I started to give some space to that thought and get more clear on what's really going on here, I started to have more creative solutions for me in that experience. And it was to create my own practice, to be able to live where I wanted to live, to be able to do retreats and facilitate retreats for meditation and sweat lodges in different parts of the world. And I was able to create that for myself. And it came from my desire to have more peace. And because I surrendered to what was, instead of keeping in resistance to it, I sat with it, softened around all of it, and my mind opened up literally, and I had these thoughts, these creative solutions that I don't believe maybe they would have come for sure at another time, because time is relative and we're never ahead or behind. Everyone's just on their own path, and there's always divine timing of when we start to wake up to who we truly be. But that was a part of my timing, and part of my path was to have a different solution for something that seemed unsolvable. Everything is figure outable if we believe it is, right? So this idea that life is neutral and it's benevolent in its desire to help us remember who we be. And life, God, source, the spirit, the universe, love is so unconditionally accepting and loving of us. It literally allows us to keep believing a lie about the truth of who we be. Think of that. It allows us to feel separate or broken, and we get to experience what it's like to not feel whole in order until we finally get so tired of suffering that we finally turn toward it with compassion. And that's when the softening begins. And that's when answers come. Life, God, the universe is ruthless in its loving of who we truly are. It will keep showing us what we are not until we finally believe in who and remember who we've always been and what we are. We are whole. We are the frequency of love and abundance. We're not separate from it. And that can be life-changing if we allow it to be. Okay. I'm wondering if any of this is landing for you, how it's landing for you. Some of the stuff that I've spoken to may seem a little bit radical or outside of your belief system. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's beautiful, because maybe it's an invitation to soften your heart around that. See how it resonates deeply, and maybe it opens your mind a little bit more to some possibilities of softening and becoming closer aligned to the frequency of remembering. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Anything they'd like to ask? Anything that feels relevant? Okay. Allison says, it's always great to have all of this pointed out. It's easy to lose track of it. Thank you. Okay, Allison, I am trying to remember how I know you or whatever. I'm so grateful you're here. Maybe you were pointed here from someone else. You don't have to come forward, but just reading that, thank you. It's something. That's why our reality, the illusion of things being difficult or suffering, it is persistent. And oh, you were pointed from someone else. Thank you. Whoever that was, thank you. I don't think it's random that you were here because you're open to it. So if this creates any more peace or ease or spaciousness in your life, great. And Rania, thank you for your clear insights and understanding about the truth of our existence. Yeah, it's interesting because somehow I used to believe that my soul was this thing that lived outside of me that I don't know, like I didn't have access to it. My soul, we are a soul. We are our soul. We are the aspect of ourselves. That's our soul is the aspect of us that can never leave us. So what a beautiful idea to create an alliance with that aspect that can never leave us. Thank you. Azalin, what a beautiful message. If we see it, we tap into the freedom that are there, that we forfeit to our thoughts. Yes, we forfeit our peace, our wholeness to our thoughts. And if that's all we're ever doing, what are we doing? Well, are we really living? We came here to experience, yes, all of this. So there's none of it we want to shun. It's actually the opposite of what we would think. It's a little bit counterintuitive, like, I need to distance myself from those feelings because they're just too heavy. Our trauma, whatever it is, whatever happened in our lives, um, that's the resistance. That's the thing we're running from. It's the story of the buffalo, right? It's being a cow in that paradigm that we're running from the storm. And when we're running from the storm's outside of us, but mostly the storm inside of us, we are literally staying in the storm because we're running with it and from it. When you step into the energy of the buffalo, it turns and faces the storm, inner and outer, inner first, because then it changes what's happening out here. And it goes into the storm because somehow intuitively it knows that it's going to arrive on the other side of that storm faster. There's no time. There's no faster, but in a way that is more sane. It is the very thing we came here to learn. We came to forget so we could experience remembering. And that is such a beautiful thing. Rania says, I think meditation is the door to our revolution and soul's growth. Yes, and so that for sure, that for me was my lived experience. I started with guided meditations for about a year and a half, and just that gave me enough space to put myself a little bit further from my thoughts. And I started to get more curious because I could observe now that back then it was Headspace. I just started using the Headspace app. It was like 9 years ago. And I stepped into that space and I loved it because it would guide me into these spacious ways to be. And one of the methods that it used for giving space was the idea of a river, our thoughts as a river. And it's constantly flowing because that's what our mind was designed to do. It was designed to fix things and create solutions. And so we believe that that is the way to have solutions. And it's so persistent and it's so persuasive. If we don't stop to think, wait, is that true? I've been suffering. Maybe there's another way. That's when real change happens. So if we can get out of the river of our thoughts and stand on the bank, now we're observing our thoughts. And we're not in the white water, just like trying to grab something to get our head above the water of our thoughts and our beliefs about our thoughts. So that was very helpful for me. And that was beginning. And then in my travels, I met a shaman who taught me how to meditate in silence. And that was a game changer because then no one else was guiding me. It was me sitting alone with, guess what? My thoughts. But I'd had a little bit of practice, but I'm not going to lie. Probably for the first 3 years of sitting in silence and meditation, I just cried. I cried and I cried and I cried because I didn't know how far down I had shoved all of my rage, my sorrow, my pain. And so I just sat and cried. And I didn't judge it. I just observed it and I allowed it to come up. And that changed me. And I realize now that as I continued on this journey, this path that we're all on, this pilgrimage back home to our wholeness, is that our tears are literally the chemicals of our trauma being released out of our system, out of our body. Crying is such a beautiful manifestation of what no longer wants to live in our system, so it can be released. Think about that. That's really beautiful. I don't,
Oh, that's really nice.
Rania, there you are. Um, it's a beautiful
Sorry.
thing, huh? No, no, no. If you're willing to talk, I would love to talk with you. I don't know if you meant to come on or not.
Yes, of course.
Rania is a dear friend that I met when I was in Germany. I was living in Norway last year, and one of my teachers was doing a retreat in Germany. And so I went from Norway to go check this out, and I met Rania there. And so Rania and I have become soul sisters and stayed in touch. She lives in California. We met all the way over in Germany, and here we are back, and we've stayed in touch. And she is so lovely to be able to come and be willing to listen and learn and grow and be more self-reflective and self-responsible. I love that. But the idea that our tears are literally releasing the chemicals that are no longer useful for us. Think of that. It's releasing what no longer serves us so we can vibrate, we can release the dense energy of trauma, of drama, of pain and anger and hurt, and what we believed we were. And when it's releasing, let it go. Let it go, and let it go with intention. It's one thing to cry and be like, oh, poor me. It's another thing to cry and let that release with the intention that I am releasing these chemicals from my being, this one instrument I've been given, so I can literally choose to live in a different frequency now. Thank you for this release. Let it go, and it's done. It's no longer pulling us back to the past, that painful past that we believed was so bad, and now we're a victim of it, and it keeps controlling us now. So release it, let it go. Stand in your power now to choose to go in a different direction with your thoughts and your beliefs, and your energy starts creating a new way to be. So let me read some of these thoughts or comments. Cindy asks, what is the best method to catch ourselves in the whirlwind of thoughts, not even realizing it, but feeling the suffering? Is there a quick way to snap back? Beautiful question. I get asked that question all the time. And I'm here to share simple truths that worked for me. Everyone's going to have a different way. But as I've worked with clients, one of the things that I notice that comes up is this question. And it really is, if we can give space, like the sacred pause. I love calling that because it is sacred when we finally are choosing to give some space to every now moment. Because if we're suffering and we just keep pushing through it, that creates dis-ease. Literally, our body is going to shut down in I don't know how many years. I don't know if you guys are experiencing it. My lungs shut down because I shoved down all of that pain and the sorrow. And in ancient Eastern wisdom traditions, as I started to study it, because I got more curious, why are my lungs shutting down? I can't run anymore. Like, what the heck? What's going on? And one of the things I learned from ancient Eastern wisdom traditions is that every emotion in whatever chakra system it's in our body. So right here in the heart chakra, anger, when we shove it down, turns to sorrow, and sorrow goes to our lungs, and grief, right? Anger goes to our kidneys and our heart. And it's a whole thing. It's very interesting. That's a whole other discussion. But I started to get curious about why one of my lungs collapsed and my lungs stopped working and I couldn't run anymore. And I believed that. I was like, oh yeah, that's just happening. But when I got more curious about it, and I start with intention to move and release that energy that I believed kept me stuck in a certain way, things started to shift. So to answer your question, Cindy, I kind of went circuitously around there. When we can slow down and say, wait, if I want to feel peace and I'm not feeling it, if I'm feeling suffering, what happened? Because my true nature is joy. That's our true nature, is peace, joy, and abundance. If we're not living in that state of being, what am I thinking that got me off of center, away from my true nature? What was I thinking before I started suffering again? It's that simple. How do I want to feel? Ah, yes, breathe that in. If I'm not in that state, what was I thinking that created this shift? And so if I can bring awareness to, oh, that's right, I was just having fear, or I was really angry, or I was really saying, I hate my life right now, and I'm going to try to control it. Just those thoughts, you guys, our thoughts, everything is energy. Our thoughts have a vibration. Like I told you, our emotions, everything has a frequency. Shame is 20 hertz. Love and joy and all of those are way up here at like 400. They're way up here, and they're easy, and they release, and they They change the structure of our cells literally by the vibration, because everything responds to frequency. We are literally a broadcaster that's sending out a signal with our thoughts, which become our words, which become our feelings. And our feelings have the strongest frequency that sends out. It's our feelings about our thoughts. So whatever, if you become aware of your inner dialogue, if it's, I'm no good, I don't believe in myself, I hate them, I hate life, I hate me. Can you imagine the frequency that is being sent out, that is being broadcasted out without you even knowing it? Because it's subconscious. 95% of our thoughts, our beliefs, our reactions are guided by what lives in our subconscious that was seeded before we were 7 years old, because we were in theta state then. So if things were scary that were happening, or we didn't feel safe in our environments growing up, in our family of origin, or with our friends or teachers, whatever that looked like, and we came to believe the lie that we don't matter, we're not enough, that's still living in our subconscious. So if we're like, why do I keep self-sabotaging all of my life? Pay attention. If we're triggered by it, it's showing us where we're still not free, and it's living in a place that we're not aware of. So in the now moment, to ask, how do I want to feel? That is the question to come back. How can I realign myself with my wholeness? And it can seem really crazy, but I promise you, the more awareness you bring to it, our brains, epigenetics and neuroplasticity, we know that now. Back in the day, they thought, oh, as you get older, too bad for you. Your brain has already aligned all of its neural pathways, and you can't create new neural pathways. That is not true. We do know now through epigenetics and neuroplasticity, we can change our thoughts. And when we do that, we're creating new neural pathways. Yes. And the coherence between our heart and our thoughts. So our heart, but this is fascinating. Our heart has more neurons and neural pathways and everything than our brain does. So everything that happens in our lives comes through our heart first before it goes to our brain, because our brain then creates the response around what it believes to be true, and then we'll have the feeling and the emotion will come in through our body. So think about that. It's first coming through our heart to our brain. So when we soften our heart around what is, do you understand how that opens up a new way to think? It creates the space to create a new neural pathway. When we meditate, they'll talk about having an anchor, and your anchor is what I'm thinking about now instead of thinking my thoughts. Oh, I'm going to just be here with my breath. It's free. It's always there. So I'm going to anchor in my breathing. Okay, I'm sitting here meditating, and the idea isn't to become a great meditator. It's to take the practice of meditation into the flow of my life now and be aware, because when you're meditating and you're concentrating on your breath in and out, your thoughts are going to happen, because every 10 to 15 seconds you're going to have a thought. That's what our brains do. But it's not to judge it, it's to just make note. Thinking, thinking, I'm just thinking. There's no judgment of it. I'm thinking, and you come back to breathing. And every time you do that, it literally creates a new neural pathway of awareness of thinking. So now we bring that into our daily life. So now you're driving down the road and someone cuts you off, and you have all these thoughts about it, and you're so angry and you're so triggered by someone driving a car in front of you. And that is your moment to say, instead of judging it, judging them, screaming, getting angry, you get to say, thinking, and you come back to now. But be aware that that thing triggering anger in you, is it really them? Is it them in their car that cut you off? Where did that anger begin? I've told the story about the Buddhist monk that wanted to have peace and meditate in the middle of this lake. I'm going to say it here again because it's really important and I love this story. So he goes out in the middle of the lake and he rows his boat out there and it's peaceful. There's no wind and he's out there just meditating for like an hour or more in perfect bliss. All that is so peaceful. And then while he's out there closing his eyes, a boat comes in and hits his boat. And he's closing his eyes and he immediately has this anger, this righteous indignation. How dare someone come and bump my boat? Couldn't they see that I was in perfect peace and bliss? And before he opened his eyes to unleash his righteous indignation on the boat, he felt all of these feelings. So he opens his eyes to look at the boat to see who it is, and it's an empty boat. It's an empty boat. And in that moment, he became enlightened because he was aware, oh, that's an empty boat. How could I ever blame an empty boat for my anger? That anger lived in me. How could I ever blame the boat? So think about this. If we are angry at all of the things, the people, the experiences, all of the circumstances in our reality that trigger anger, fear, judgment, name it, you name it, all of the things we do as humans, there's no blame. We're human. That's why we're here, is to experience all of what we're not so we can remember what we are. We are not our thoughts. We are not the judgment. We are not everything is an empty boat, inviting us to wake up. Why did that trigger you? It's just showing you, my dear, where you're still not free, where you still want to have some more spaciousness and ease there. So turn toward it. Don't run from it. Shake hands with the present now. Say, you're welcome here. They talk about becoming the guest house. Become the guest house for your emotions and your now moment. Instead of putting a door shut, my do not disturb sign. I don't want to deal with anything. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Is that a way to live? It's so contracted. That's resistance. It looks like this. When we open up and say, I will become the guest house for all that is. And being a guest house doesn't mean that it comes to stay. Our emotions don't come to stay. They come just like guests. And they saying is after about 3 days, fish and guests start to stink and it's time to go. But guess what? Our emotions only come, they say, about 90 seconds. That's a minute and a half of feeling something. And then it goes. Sometimes it's not that long. If it's longer, pay attention. Then it means that we are clinging to the emotion of anger, of fear, of rage, of envy, of jealousy, of even joy and bliss. We'll cling to that as much as we can instead of staying in the present moment with what is. I hope that helps you. Okay. Sam, thank you. I appreciate your knowledge. I'm contemplating the vast areas that you have opened up to me. I need to pause the thoughts. You get to. So there's some words. Peter Crone, one of my teachers, he has such a beautiful way to explain things. He calls, when we say should, I could, I have to, I need to, I want to, he calls those insidious words because they're keeping us in a state of lack. If we want or we need or believe that we should or have to do something, that it creates the idea, the identity that we lack something. We already have everything we need. How could we lack something? That's forgetting that we're connected to all that is. Does that make sense? So how about saying, I get to, I desire to, I love to. I love to think new thoughts. I get to experience a new way to be. And it changes the frequency of what we're living in, and new things start arriving. New realities come in because we believe in ourselves, and now we believe our words. Does that make sense? When we start believing our words, we start believing in ourselves. It goes
That
both.
is so beautiful.
Thank you, Rania. Okay. Cindy, did I answer your question? Does that make sense to you guys? Where It really can be more simple than we think. It's not a hard thing. How do we want to feel? That's pretty simple. If you want to put in the chat here, how do you want to feel? If I had to answer that question, because I'm literally doing it more and more, and my life has changed. There's so much bliss. You're reminding me again of what that's the thing. I may remind you of these things. You're gonna, not just from me. There's so many people saying the very same things that I'm saying. I'm glad you found your way to me. Somehow, something I'm saying is reminding you of what already lives in you. It lives in every single one of us. And that's why this is such a beautiful space to share, because Ram Dass said, we literally are walking each other home, back home to the remembrance of who we be. That is so beautiful. Whatever that looks like for each one of us, there are as many paths as there are people. Whatever your path is, own it, embrace it, stop resisting it. Let it be what it wants to be. Let it move through you and let it transform you because it's uncomfortable. Don't dismiss suffering. It's here to teach you something deep about who
Mm.
you truly be. If you are suffering in any way, get curious. Do I want to live in the state of being that is contracted, small, lonely, sad, angry, blaming, a victim of my circumstances? Just feel how that feels in your body. Ugh, I don't want to invite that into my guest house. But guess what? The minute you turn towards it and embrace it, accept it, all the versions of us that we deemed unlovable or that we came to believe when we were younger were unlovable, if we're still dismissing those, and they come to us in the form of triggers, the things that are triggering us are saying, go, like it's showing you, you're not free yet. Go get curious about what's triggering you in that person or this experience. And now I get to just actually, I used to really, really teach that we needed to go and we needed to talk to that and like make peace with it and let it come back home to our heart. And now guess what? We're not so fractured. We're more whole. Perfect in the Greek form means complete, whole. Perfection isn't striving and over efforting to be a certain way. That's not what perfect is. Perfect just means that we've accepted and embraced all the parts of us that we've othered and judged in others, mostly ourselves, or we wouldn't judge it out here. And we're allowing it to come back home. And guess what that creates? A frequency of wholeness, because we've allowed all of the things that we denied to be back here. That's how we are more whole. If time is relative, and there's only ever now, we are literally living in a bubble of now, then that means that the version of us that we call our highest self, our wholest version of ourselves, she exists right now in a different dimension of now, but it has to do with frequency. How do we access the frequency of our wholeness? Well, you start asking yourself the question, my wholeness, let's just pretend I'm waking up one day and I am my highest self. How do I talk to myself? How do I talk about myself to others? How do I show up? What is my diet? My diet isn't just the food I'm putting in my mouth. My diet for this one instrument is everything I'm thinking about myself, and that will give me the lens to see my whole world. If I'm unsafe or there's a war here, then guess what's happening in my world? More suffering. If I start to check my thoughts and I'm like, oh, that's right, I don't believe that anymore because I am my highest self and I'm vibrating at the frequency of acceptance and love and abundance. I'm not separate from all that is. I am abundance. I think it's Ram Dass who says, how could you ever be lonely when you are never alone? Your soul God, source, everything is right here. And all of our ancestors that are living in a different dimension of now, you can't feel them. You can't feel their support. They're always there. And I know you have felt that. I know each one of you here have felt that. It's undeniable. How could we ever need something when we already have it all? It's clever. This whole lived experience is so clever because it's an illusion of believing that our validation and our love and acceptance and everything exists out, and our wisdom and our knowledge exists somewhere out here, like in a God or in this relationship or a job or a possession or something. But when we slow down, we realize that everything we've been searching for is so close. It's here. In order to go up and connect with all that is, God, source, we have to go, we get to go in on this inner pilgrimage to finally be aligned with our wholeness, which is never separate. So even use that as an experiment. If I imagine myself, my highest self, waking up every morning, what is she going to say? How does she walk? How does she dress? How does she show up for herself? Because I promise you, how you show up for yourself, when I say show up, people are like, what do you mean by that? What are you thinking? Are you aware of what you're thinking? That's how you show up for yourself. Ah, I'm aware that thought actually doesn't serve me. Okay, that's good to know. I can think a different thought. And it's not spiritually bypassing, and it's not positive psychology. It is literally your choice, your power in every now moment to choose again. If you thought before, oh, I suck, or I'm not good at that, guess what? You have another now moment right now to say, wait a minute, I don't like how that feels. I can choose right now to live in my highest frequency. Do you see how powerful that is? That's our power. We're taking back our power. Instead of being a victim to everything, we're like, wait, I forgot, because that's what we are doing here. We're forgetting, but we're all helping each other remember that we're not forgetters. Oh, I forgot that I create my reality by my thoughts. Of course I did. That's okay. So much compassion for being human. That's what we're here to do. And do you see how it starts to bring an ease to everything? Because you stop judging yourself for being human, because that's what we're here to do. So I'm over. It's 1:11 right now, and I think that's pretty cool to end on 1:11. If anyone has anything that they want to say or ask, please ask now. I don't want to make this go any longer, but thank you for being here. Please, please love on yourself. Please give yourself the sacred pause before you react and get curious. Oh, I don't like how that feels. Okay, I'm coming back to my wholeness that's never been missing from me. And that when you start to shift that, I promise you, it starts to gain momentum, because people are like, if I believe that I'm lonely, then the lonely person that I believe that I am is going to try to support the person that feels lonely. I get that. I've lived that for a long time in my life, and that created a lot of suffering, believing that I was not capable of showing up for myself kept me very lonely and very suffering. So when we start to actually stay where we didn't stay before, stay with the thoughts, stay with the emotions, and get curious and offer compassion. When you do that and you're like, oh, honey, of course you feel that way. Of course you came to believe. That's okay. That starts to shift everything. That's your power. That's your power coming back. It's becoming sovereign, sovereign in your thoughts, sovereign in your being, not giving your power away to anyone and not being a victim anymore. And it's not empowerment with like, I am powerful. It's literally the power of love, which is the most powerful force in all that is. It's the power of love. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I love you all. I know you all differently in different ways. and I am honored that you are here. Thank you for showing up. I will send out the recording. If you want the recording, please send me somewhere else. Not in the chat now, because I don't know, I'm not so good at this to know where that goes, but send me your email and I will send you the recording. And I have all the recordings on my YouTube channel, The Buffalo Queen, if you want to go listen to them and have them in your ear. If you ever have questions, I do one-on-one sessions, and I have this offering that I'm offering for, I think I only have space for a couple of women that would be wanting to do this, where I've just had too many women come to me and say, how did you do what you did? I could never have done what you did. You sold everything and you moved abroad. You traveled alone. I'm like, yes, you actually could do that. You just don't believe it yet. So I my offer is, I'm trying to figure out whether it's 6 months or a year to work with me deeply. We meet twice a month and we do deep work, but then you have access to me all the time to integrate what we're working on. And then twice within that time, we're going to travel, because I have learned that as I travel without any expectation of what it should look like I don't have a plan. I literally, so the person I'm working with, I'll say, you choose where you want to go, anywhere in the world, and we're going to go, but we're going to travel like I travel, which is not knowing. It's stepping into the unknown and allowing magic to happen. Because when we, with our limited mind, think, oh, I'm going to stay at this place and I'm going to see that thing and I'm going to go visit that, it's limiting our experience of magic. What wants to flow into us is being controlled. Can you see that? By, well, I'm going to do this. I need to see this. So what I do when I travel, I don't know how this came to be. It just was a way that I started to experience my travels in a way that was magical, because I would just rent a car, or if it wasn't a place where I could rent a car, I just would go, start walking, and I would get to an intersection and just feel, I'm going to go left or I'm going to go right, whatever that was. And I would let my intuition, it was like flexing the muscle of my inner knowing, because I didn't trust myself for most of my life. My outer authority was in charge rather than my inner knowing. And when I started, it was a way for me to test. Let's just see what happens when I don't know. When I stop being so certain that I think I have all the answers, and I can just be like, actually, the only thing that I do know is that I don't know. And so I would trust this and it would guide me, and I would meet the right people. I would have, I don't know if it's good, bad, right, or wrong, but I would meet people and have experiences and be taken to places that I probably wouldn't have if I thought, well, I'm going to stay in this hotel. I would just start driving. And when it got dark, or if I felt, oh, this is a place to be, the energy here is so beautiful, I would have experiences that when I got back home, I was like, no way, no way. That was so beautiful. And yes, maybe I didn't get on the train like I thought I should, but it ended up taking me in a different direction. So now I've learned, if I can live my life how I travel, stepping into the unknown, trusting that I am safe to trust myself in any circumstance, that's magic. So that's one of my largest offerings that I have.
You are magic.
And I really am excited, because I'm like, I've done this work and my life path has been weird. I've always been kind of a free spirit. My kids have known that. After the divorce, they're like, Mom, we love you. We know you. You've always been a free spirit. Go live your best life. We know we're always going to be in touch with you and stuff. And going and living abroad for those years actually deepened my relationship with each of my kids. That was a gift I didn't see coming. But I started to think when I got back here to America, because I trusted that feeling. I never thought I'd come back. I sold everything. I'm like, I can't go back. And here I am. But I can see now why that was so important. But now I realize my life has been that I'm kind of free spirit. And I love helping other people feel more peace in their lives, because that's been my path. I'm like, how can I marry these two things together? So this offering is really, I'm like, let's not dismiss what our story has been. Each one of us has a beautiful story. Why? Why? If the shit that happened to us, excuse my language, if we can turn that into our fertilizer, that made us grow and become who we are right now? Are we going to dismiss that, or are we going to let it be the map for where it's taking us next? That's what I'm doing now. I'm like, well, all of this happened. Nothing's random. That was my story. That's why I'm here. It's my purpose. It feels like the thing that lights me up. If I can follow what lights me up, the desire of my heart, then I know I'm on path. I'm not resisting anything. It feels kind of scary, maybe, but then I'm like, no, that feels so alive. So can you do that for yourself? Can you follow, get clear on what has been my story? What has been hard? What has arrived in me? Who have I become because that happened? And how do I choose to move forward in my life because that's my story? So maybe there's something in there. Maybe there's a nugget, a gift that you get to bring forward for everyone else because it's yours. It's not someone else's. So thank you, Rania. You are magic, Missy. Okay. I love you all. Oh, and I'm also offering in September, I'm starting a new course, and it's all about this stuff. So if you are curious and want to go deeper, all of the practical ways to show up for yourself, all the stuff. So I finished my PhD last year because I was reading all the books and doing all the stuff. I was like, I might as well get my degree in this. But I love and geek out on the intersection of quantum physics and metaphysics. Metaphysics are the things that we can't see in the spiritual world. I have my clinical training, all of my therapeutic stuff, my master's in that. But what healed me was not clinical. It was something beyond. It was the sweat lodges. It was the sacred sweating. It was the energy work. It was the hypnotherapy. It was the subconscious freedom work. It was all of these things that literally changed me. And I'm like, that's what I want to share. I don't want to sit in a practice where people are coming in and they're telling me their story, their world of words that they've been living in, that they are depressed, and they have this disorder, and they have all this dis-ease in their body. I'm like, actually, I don't want to support that. I want to support people
Mm.
waking up to who they be. And that is not, they are not depressed. They are experiencing depression. They are experiencing these things, and they can change it by the power of their belief in themselves to be able to do so. That is the truth. And that is what people are starting to wake up to. And so I love you. Thank you for being here. I went way over, but stay tuned for more. I love you. I love you. Thanks you guys so much. I just feel so much love for you all. Thank you and ciao.